This is a review of your TGA for Unit 1. I'll be doing the Unit 1 TGA study guide, which directly correlates with the actual TGA. So on the left over here is where I will be writing and working out the TGA, but I just had the real TGA pulled up on the right side right here, so you can see how they're the same type of questions. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so for number 1, this is the study guide, but you can see over here on the real TGA, the question is set up the same. So on the study guide, you have -9 multiplied by -2. And then on the real TGA, you have -7 multiplied by -3. So you would solve this one the same way that I'm going to show you how to solve this one. Okay, so let me get my pen tool. I'll write in purple so you can see it really well. We know a negative times a negative is a positive. And then you just have to ask yourself, what is 9 times 2? And that equals 18. Okay, positive 18. Number 2, you have a -9 times a positive 2 on the study guide. And on the real one, you have a -7 times a positive 3. So on both of them, you have a negative times a positive, which is going to give you a negative. So you can go ahead and write your negative sign. And then you just do 9 times 2. So -18 for number 2. Okay, let's scroll down and look at number 3 here on the study guide. It says a product has 4 factors. 3 of those factors are negative integers. 1 factor is a positive integer. What is the sign of the product? Explain your answer and provide an example below. So in this one, the only difference here is this says it has 4 factors. The real TGA, you have 7, but you're going to do it the same way that I show you how to do this. So since there are 4 factors, I'm just going to use the number 2. That's the easiest. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, my 2's look like Z's. And it says 3 of them are negative. So there's 1 negative, 2 negatives, 3 negatives. And 1 is positive, so we'll leave that one positive. So all you have to do here is multiply these and see what sign your answer will have. So we know a negative times a negative is a positive. A positive times a negative is a negative. And then a negative times a positive is a positive. Okay? So -2 times -2 would be +4. +4 times -2 would be -8. And -8 times +2 would be -16. Okay, so I'll use my text tool here. And it says, what is the sign of the product? So the sign is negative. And then it says, explain your answer and provide an example below. So that was our example, and we just have to explain. The sign is negative because let's see how we want to word this. Because a negative times a positive is a negative. So I was just explaining the very last part of it. So we got to a positive right here, positive, and a negative. These two last ones, the -8 times +2, gave us a negative. Okay, so you would do the same thing right here on number 3 on the real TGA, except for instead of doing 4 of the number 2's, this one says you need 7. So write out 7 2's, and then 4 of those 2's need to be negative, and 3 of those 2's need to be positive. And then you're just going to go through and find the answer, see what sign it has, and then your reasoning will be the same. Okay, so that's part 1. We'll go on to part 2. On the TGA, you have negative 1.55 over 5. And we know when we see a fraction, that just means a division problem. And you can see that on the real TGA here. It's not in fraction form. They have it written out like a division problem. But these are the same thing operation-wise. Okay? So anything I do for this one, you're going to do the same for this one. All right, so let me get my pen tool back. And we have, make that a little bit bigger, 1.55 divided by 5. Okay? And one of these has to be negative. So if I have a negative divided by a positive, I know that my answer is going to be negative. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that negative sign up at the top in my answer. Okay? So 5 cannot go into 1, so we need to move this decimal over. So now we have 15.5. And 5 can go into 15 3 times. And that would give you 15. Okay? Subtract those. 15 minus 15 is 0. Bring that other 5 down. And you now have a 5 down here. 5 can go into 5 1 times. And I forgot to put my decimal right there earlier. Okay, and 0 left over. So your answer is negative 0.31. Okay, that is for number 1. And you would do that same exact process for number 1 on the TGA. So you would put 2.64 underneath the tent for your division problem. And then 8 goes on the outside. Okay, and you'll have to move those decimals over. And 8 will go into 26 and so on. Okay, number 2, I'm going to do number 2 over here. Again, we have a negative divided by a positive. We know our answer is negative. So I'm going to go ahead at the top and write my negative sign. And we have 2.4 underneath and 0.12 on the outside. Now for this one, you want a whole number on the outside when you're dividing. Okay, right now we have a decimal. So to make that a whole number, we got to move this decimal over 2 places to the right. And anything that we do on the outside, we need to do on the inside. So we need to move this decimal 2 places to the right. So 1, 2. And if you notice, there is a blank space. We always fill it in with zeros. Okay. So I'm going to rewrite this over here just so it looks a little cleaner. We now have 12 on the outside divided by 240. And you can put your decimals if you want to. You don't have to. Keep your negative sign. Okay? And 12 goes into 240 20 times. Okay. And make sure that you write this part out. And you can just circle your answers. All right. So number 1 for part 2 on the study guide is negative 0.31. Number 2 is negative 20. And like I said, these two on the real TGA, you will set them up the same way. So for number 2, you will put, let me see how you would write that one. Negative 17.5 underneath. And then 0.25 on the outside. Okay? All right, number 3, the last part here says, Rebecca believes negative 10 over negative 5 equals negative 2. Julie believes negative 10 over negative 5 equals positive 2. Who is correct and why? So this is basically asking you, is a negative divided by a negative, or is a negative divided by a negative a positive? And in this case, Julie would be correct. Okay, so I'm going to get my text tool here and type out Julie is correct because a negative, I'm just going to use the sign, divided by a negative is a positive. Okay, same thing here. It's actually the exact same scenario. All right. Any questions, feel free to email me.